Welcome to Brave Enough for Love, the podcast for anyone who knows happily ever after doesn't always happen on the first try. Meet your hosts, Chris and Kabrina, two people who've been married, divorced, figured some things out the hard way, and still decided love was worth another shot. They found it with each other. And now they're talking about everything that comes with round two, navigating careers, dealing with exes, kids and blended families, big adventures, sex, and everything in between. The messy parts, the beautiful parts, and the hilarious "no one warned us about this" parts. If you're into honest conversations, real laughs, and a reminder that starting over can actually be better than starting from scratch, you're in the right place. This is Brave Enough for Love. Welcome back to another episode of Brave Enough for Love. As you can see, we're trying a new setup today to kind of make this easier for us to edit at the back end. But today's topic is going to be about what do you do when you go on a date? Where do you start? Do you go to coffee? Do you go to a full dinner? How much should you spend? What does that look like? Because that is something that we have had people that we know and that we're friends with come to us with conversations about. And I have a very specific view of what you should do. And it goes against a little bit of what this looks like for other people. So
Kabrina and I have had a really busy couple of weeks. We've been doing a lot of fun things, and at one point we were out with a group, and this conversation sort of spontaneously came up. And there's this concept of, should you go out for coffee? Should you go out for a fancy dinner? Should you try to impress somebody? And I think Kabrina and I both fall very clearly into the category of keep it sweet, keep it simple, have an exit plan, right?
yeah. And I think for me, I've always thought the easier access I have for leaving if something's not good, the better. Because you don't want to put yourself into a situation where you're stuck and you have to now wait for your meal to come, or you have to wait for the check to come if you're the guy and you are paying, or do we split and then make it awkward at the end? Because I've definitely gone on dates with people where we ended up splitting the bill multiple times, which is something that we can talk about today as well.
Yeah, and I also have this. First of all, I want to when we went out on our first date, we got coffee. We told the story on the last episode. It's adorable. Please watch it. Um, but we had spent so much time talking to each other. It wasn't that I was trying to escape from you, but I wanted it to be easy. I didn't want there to be expectations. I didn't want there to be, um, some idea of this is going to be a really long night in case it was awkward or you were uncomfortable. Um, and I hear more and more things like, well, no, it's got to be a big deal. You hear people on social media say, I want to go out for a full dinner. I want to go out for multi-course. I want to, if you're going to take me on a date, this is what I'm worth. And to me, um, there's this fear as a dad of daughters as well, like that there's an expectation that builds up. I think a date should be simple and easy. It should not be the purpose for meeting. The purpose for meeting should be to get to know each other. And that's one of the things I loved about our first date. If it hadn't gone well, okay, no big deal. But it did, and we made it stretch into more time, and we got to talk, and we got to meet, get to know each other a whole lot better.
And I agree. This is something that I have had lots of conversations with several of my friends, because guys and girls that I'm friends with will go, well, why do you expect this? And I'm like, what do you mean, me? Are you talking about like girls in general, women in general are expecting this kind of idea of, I'm going to go on a date, they're going to spend a lot of money on me, and if I like them, great. If I don't, then I get to throw them away, which goes back to the conversation that we had a couple podcast episodes ago of people just get thrown away. And I think that there is this idea, especially if you're looking for ideally a long-term relationship, something that you're going to be able to really lean in with somebody, getting to know them slowly and over time, you're going to have plenty of times to go to dinner. So I think that one of the things that I'm going to do right now is just kind of explain my thought process. So when I was going on dates with people, there was always this you never knew what the expectation was. I always came prepared to pay for whatever it was that we did. I always came prepared for, hey, if I need to escape, here's the people on my call list that I can send a quick emoji text to and they would know to call me. And I think as a woman, especially when you're going out and dating and you're meeting people online, you're meeting people in spaces that aren't necessarily a easy to pop away from situation, you should be being more proactive in how you're protecting yourself because there is some due diligence that has to be done here because we're not meeting people in the ways that we used to. We're not getting introduced through friends or meeting at school or being in office together for a lot of the relationships that we're talking about. So using this as almost a litmus test of, hey, let's go to coffee. Let's see how things are. Maybe it's something else that's like super easy. Like my go tos are always coffee or Chick-fil-A. Like if you have to eat, fast food is great because you're coming in, you're doing it, you're leaving. It's easy to get away. And I think that that is something that we don't really talk about when we think about dating because we're so focused on what are we getting out of it that we're not having that conversation of how do I protect myself knowing that I'm wanting to be into a relationship.
And I also think there's something to be said for the stripped down date, for the date that isn't overly fancy and overly involved.
Yeah.
If you go to a 5-star, a 3-star restaurant, there's pomp and circumstance. It may last for hours, but there's a lot of interruption.
Mm-hmm.
To me, some of the best dates that I've ever been on, and certainly my favorite first date ever, which was with you. You and I had a cup of coffee and a crepe,
Mm-hmm.
and that was it. And that carried us for hours,
Mm-hmm.
because there were no interruptions. It was just you and I. We got to take the time to get to know each other and go for a walk and do all of these things that aren't status bound, but
Yeah.
were wonderful because we could talk to each other. We could be open to each other. We could laugh. Um, so I guess where my head is make it easy, make it
Mm-hmm.
easy, make it light, make it non-committal. And you may just find somebody that you really enjoy talking to.
Well, and on that, we got to decide how long the date went.
Hmm.
It wasn't and I feel this when we go to dinner even now. We'll go out on a date and it feels like once dinner's done, the date is over. And then you have to either make okay, well, we're going to go home and do blah, 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 or whatever. When you go to coffee and you go for a walk like we did, we got to have coffee. We got to sit and just drink coffee and not worry about like eating in between because that's one of the biggest issues. Like you're having a conversation and you're like, oh, sorry, I know you just took a bite of something. And now their mouth is full and you're having to have this truncated conversation and you're not getting the full version of a person in that. So, and I think that this goes back to some of the things that we had talked about before we started the episode is knowing what are your plans for this? Are you planning on having just dating around relationship? Are you planning on having a long-term relationship? Is this something where you just kind of want a friend to fuck around with? What is this to you? And have you made those things clear to the other person so that you're both going into this with the same idea? Because what happens when we're talking about, well, if I go on a date and it should be an expensive dinner, for example, then I can't. There's this unwritten rule that if you do spend a lot of money on somebody, that they should automatically be willing to sleep with you. And so now we're having expectations on both sides of this coin instead of coming in and going, I'm trying to get to know you. You're trying to get to know me. And let's see if this is even something that's viably working. But if your goal is to go in for a one night stand, like if we're just Tinder and we're playing this, like I'm just going to see who I can sleep with tonight, there has to be some kind of open communication about that because if there's not, everybody's disappointed at the end. And then we're mad that somebody's disappointed because we didn't communicate.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I also, I mean, it is hard for me because I'm from the male perspective, but I really don't want to set up an expectation in a dating environment. right? I don't want to lock myself into 5 hours with somebody for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And if I were a woman, I certainly would not want to misconstrue some expectation, beyond a meal.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what dating is. Dating should be really simple. It should be getting to know somebody. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Getting to know somebody and see if you're compatible. Everything from there on out, you figure out as you go. Um, I love the simple dates. What are some other really cool simple dates that, we've been on some crazy simple dates, even as we've been together for, almost a year and a half. Like this weekend, we went out and painted
Mm-hmm.
outside a landmark down here. And it was beautiful. The sun was out and we talked and we laughed and we painted. I painted very badly. Kabrina did a really good job. Um, but those types of things where you're actually using your brain and your creativity to get somebody out of their comfort zone
Mm-hmm.
and get to be in a situation where you have the time to talk with them, I think will trump something fancy and something preposterous and staged.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is you can't do that forever, right?
Well, yeah, because it gets really expensive very quickly, especially if you're going out on multiple first dates. And if you're, especially like, I can understand why guys get frustrated with this because if the expectation is, I have to go spend 100 or $200 on a dinner for every first date I go on, now there's no room for, okay, well, that didn't work out. A $5 to $8 coffee, though, I can justify doing that a lot more times and finding the right person just versus just finding a person. And I think this is where a lot of people go wrong with this. And there's plenty of time for the expensive dinners later. And so when it comes down to it for me, I would rather go out to coffee and then maybe do a inexpensive dinner somewhere and then go out with friends. And one of the things that we've done multiple times is that my friends have met you, your friends have met me, and it gives those people the opportunity to ask questions too that maybe in the moment you're not thinking of asking that are worth the asking in the first place because you get kind of caught up in the whimsicalness of dating and finding somebody that you like. And I think that there's something to be said for other people kind of watching your back.
There's this idea of, you never date on the movie set.
Mm-hmm.
You never date on the work trip, or you don't date, you don't find somebody and fall in love with them in Vegas
Yeah.
because you're not in the real world. You're in a fake world. You're in a world that was created where everything's easy and you're on an expense account or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that never lasts because expectations get broken really quickly once you return back to real life.
Mm-hmm.
So don't blow it up. Don't make it something big and unsustainable and silly and over the top trying to impress somebody. To find the right person, you impress them with your conversation. You impress them with your humor. It's not how expensive of a bottle of wine can we buy tonight on our first date.
Mm-hmm. Well, and thinking about longevity of something, because if the only reason that you're with somebody is because they treat you in a certain way that's like bougie and they buy stuff for you and they do all these things, is that the only way that you want them to love you? Because what happens, and I guess I might be one of the few people who think about this, but I think about like, what is it going to be like when this person meets my children for the first time? What is it going to be like when, somebody gets sick and you have the flu and you need somebody to take care of you, or you need somebody to go and run groceries and get some stuff because you've been at work all day, or like for us, there's a kid who needs to go to therapy that night. There's another kid who's at play practice. There's another kid who's got some kind of sport activity, and we have to work together. Do you want the things that are so superficial to be the only things that matter? And to me, I never looked at it as like a test, but there is somewhat of a litmus test of like, can this person be bigger and more in my life than just somebody to go on dates with?
Okay, so for people who have come out of a first marriage or a long-term relationship and are back in the dating market,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot that's changed,
Yeah.
right? So we're talking about how do we date, and we're looking at it from the perspective of each other. We
Mm-hmm.
were both very interested in each other, right? how do you navigate situationships, sugar daddy, sugar mommy, all of this stuff where dating has become kind of almost a currency,
Mm-hmm.
um, versus, I'm going to call it the old fashioned way, which I think you and I sort of fell into. We really wanted companionship and we really liked each other before we ever met, just off of talking. But you're out at a bar, you're out, you meet somebody out in the wild and say, let's go on a date tomorrow. Um, there's a lot of dynamics here that are at play that I don't think we had to deal with.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think that we should talk through this of if we were to do this again. And I'm talking through it through the voice of I have a lot of friends that are my age that are in their mid 30s who have never been in a long-term relationship, never been married, don't have children, or if they were in a long-term relationship, they've got one kid or two kids. And so they don't have the dynamics that we have to kind of consider. So for people that are listening who maybe they found this podcast through a friend and they haven't been in a long-term relationship, they haven't been married. This is not their second time. Um and for those who maybe were married for a long time but maybe don't have children in the mix and are going out into the dating world, what, from a man's perspective, would be some of the suggestions that you'd have for, meeting people, but then what happens after you meet the people? Because I think that the dating apps and the going to the bar, and that's the advice you're getting is like, how do you go meet the person? But then nobody's giving advice for what happens after you meet the person.
Right. Yeah. I mean, to me, I think you have to, even in any situation nowadays, just to be safe, to make sure that you're compatible. But safety is really key. You
Mm-hmm.
have to talk with somebody a lot. You know, you and I didn't rush it. Um, it all was condensed. We met fairly soon after we talked, but we had spent hours and hours and hours talking. So I feel like we knew each other pretty well before we
Mm-hmm.
went out. Um, and as such, I don't feel like there was this expectation of big and flashy. You wanted to do coffee. I wanted to do coffee. It was the perfect opportunity for us to talk. Now, when we hear this from others in our social group, there are often big planned out, you know, we're going to go to dinner, we're going to go do this, evenings of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, I sort of feel like that's always destined to fail. It might be a nice evening, but you exhaust somebody. Like when you have kids that play together for too long and they all start fighting,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Or like those days that you're like, we're going to go do X, Y, and Z and spend the whole Saturday out and you've got it all planned. And you come home and you're like, I try to do fun things and you make it not that way. And it becomes an episode of The Office.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there is absolutely a fatigue, especially when you're first trying to meet someone and you're trying to behave. You're trying to be on your
Yeah.
best behavior.
Mm-hmm.
The longer you push it, the more extreme it is, the wilder the swings are, the more likely I believe you are to fail because you can't keep that guys up the whole time.
Yeah. I hadn't considered that because I'm not necessarily the person that likes to behave in a certain way. Like I kind of come into a situation and I go, this is who I am, and I'm going to be as extreme as I am normally because if you can't handle me this way, like I always say, if people can't handle my Taylor Swift obsession, you're not going to like me because I'm going to bring it up at least once a conversation. We literally we were driving somewhere yesterday, and I was like, "Wait, let me tell you how this song relates to this song and why they're sister songs." And I stop myself sometimes. Like I was literally having this conversation in my brain yesterday, and I was like, "It's good that he doesn't find this annoying.
We're going to have an entire CSI board in our house with yarn and
It's gonna be
songs
great."
intertwined, and I'm all for it. I think it's brilliant. I love it.
Yeah, and so it's one of those things of if you like, my son is obsessed with Pokemon. Both of us have no idea what the hell he's talking about ever. But his little friend, who's his girlfriend at school, knows exactly what he's talking about, and they get along so well, and they play, and you know, her mom is one of my good friends now, and neither of us have any idea what they're talking about most of the time. But it's being able to know that if somebody in your life has a obsession like that, like Chris is not obsessed with Taylor Swift in the way that I am,
I'm becoming.
but you understand enough
Yeah.
to be dangerous. We understand enough of Pokemon to be like, okay, I can tell you who 5 of the characters are and which I could point them out if I was looking at them. But that's something that's really important is how are you coming into the situation? Are you pretending to be somebody that you're not? And I think it's being really honest with yourself of what that expectation is for you. Because I think I watched this with one of my very good friends who I love very much, but he also does things that drive me absolutely crazy because he comes into a situation and he goes, well, this is who I'm going to be. And I'm like, but you're so fun and you're so loving and you can be this like really cool person. And I think it gets missed in the midst of him trying to bravado himself into a relationship.
Yeah. And before we get off Pokemon, how funny was that TikTok we looked at the other day where they were trying to tell us to decide the difference between Pokemon and
And the medication,
pharmaceuticals?
oh my
Oh my
gosh,
God, please go search this up.
crazy, crazy.
Pokemon or prescription drugs? Best.
It was hard.
It was
I didn't
really
know.
hard. Yeah,
There
really
was so
hard.
many of them.
Now we just got to go look up what all those things treated because that'd be hilarious.
But the thing that I wanted to ask you, and I'll let you finish what you were going to say too, but going into the safety piece,
Mhm.
because I don't want to get too far away from that, is
Huge.
as a man, because I'll talk about the safety pieces from a woman's perspective, but as a man, what are some of the things that you were worried about, like as a man in general, but then I'd love to know as a man with children?
Yep. So, as a man, my biggest safety concern, I'm not physically concerned, right? I'm not physically concerned that I'm going to go meet a woman and she's going to stab me. But I am concerned that we are in a place where there are other people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it is not every woman that does things that are negative to men. It's not every man that does things that are negative to women. There are many of us who are kind and generous and safe. However, I don't want to ever be in a situation where a woman would feel unsafe with me or perceive something unsafe.
Mm-hmm.
So, being in a public place, daytime, perfect. Right? That's perfect for a first date. As a father of girls, however, I look at things in a much more rigid way. I want my kids to be safe always. And to me, and I don't, as a man and as a man who is very conscious of the weight that we put on women and on how unfair the balance of blame can be. I don't ever want any woman that I know to be on a date scenario where a man, be it an idiot or be evil or whatever, misinterprets something.
Mm-hmm.
So let's keep these things simple. Let's keep them simple and safe for everybody. Um, I look at every situation, and when we first talked and we talked about what are we going to do, we're going to go do a coffee shop. I was totally relieved,
Mm-hmm.
like brilliant, because I don't want to lock you into all night if you don't like being around me, if we don't
Yeah.
jive. And I certainly don't want to be in a situation where I'm at $100 dinner and a date leaves midway through
Mm-hmm.
and leaves me sitting there feeling awful. Simpler is easier. Simpler is better. And I think that if we'd gone to a restaurant, we would have missed out on the second half of our date, which was running around playing like idiots, laughing and enjoying each other's company.
Yeah. Well, and you did something that was very unique. Like most of the people that I had come in contact with and gone on dates with prior to you would say, this is what we're doing. And you came at this of, so what's the next step here? Basically, it was something to the effect of, I would like to meet. How would you like to do
How do we
that?
do it?
And so it gave me the opportunity to then say, here's what I feel safe with. And for you, the opportunity to go, that's great. And it gave you the opportunity to also say, no, I'd rather do this.
Mhm.
But then we said, okay, we're going to go for coffee. And then you said, what area? And then I got to pick the area that I felt the most comfortable with, that wasn't close to my house, it wasn't close to your house. It was something that was a midway. And as a woman, I had done my due diligence already. And if you are a woman listening to this and you're not doing this, I'm going to highly suggest that you write this down, because I have met so many people who get into dating situations and they feel unsafe. And we already take that chance by going and meeting people out, but doing it in public, someplace that's you're well known, that you know where you're getting there. They're not picking you up for the date.
Totally.
You're either Ubering there if you plan on drinking, or you're driving yourself. You're parking far enough away to where they don't have your tags to your car or anything like that. And then you have reverse searched their phone number, because I want to have as much information about somebody as I can before I meet with them. I also want to say, on the reverse searching phone number piece, you should probably, as a woman, be giving out your Google number, because most people don't know that your phone number is connected to where you live.
Yep.
And God forbid you end up meeting somebody on the internet who's not a safe person. The last thing we need is them being able to find you. And this goes for social media too. We're not tagging everywhere we go. We're not saying, hey, this is a coffee shop that I come to every Thursday, because of the fact that I think, especially in the world that we live in, we assume that there's a little bit more safety than there is. And this, I don't say these things to like creep anybody out. This is just me as a mom and as a woman who was felt insecure going out in public and doing these things. And like, how do I show up as a independent, strong woman and admit that there are people that are a lot bigger than me that could put me into precarious situations. This is like, you watch your drink when you go out. You make sure that you have either the little tabs that you can stick in and make sure that nobody's spiked your drink. And those kinds of things are things, unfortunately, that we have to think of in this day and age.
Yeah, and I think men need to think about that as well. You know,
100%.
good men who are trying to find good women, who are trying to find friendship, companionship, relationships. Don't make it so big. Don't make it difficult. Don't make it out at night with alcohol. You know, there's something really nice and peaceful about let's go meet in a park and have a picnic, or
Mm-hmm.
let's go to a coffee shop. And I even think coffee shop's better because I'm not handling food. You know, you're getting it from a third party. I want
Yeah.
to make sure, and that was my intention with you the entire time, was to say what makes you feel the most comfortable,
Mm-hmm.
and I will go anywhere to meet that. Right? I got to choose the place. Kabrina got to choose the venue. She got to choose the type of date we were going on, the time of day, the day of week, because I want you to be comfortable. My goal from that day to today and every day moving forward is to make you feel as safe as humanly possible with me always. That I'm here to keep you safe and to love you and to make you comfortable, never to make you uncomfortable. And that whole idea of like, hey, we're gonna go out, we're gonna go hit a bar, we're gonna go get drunk on a first date is awful to me. It
Mm-hmm.
terrifies me.
Well, and I think that this flows nicely into what our next episode is going to be about, of what are those flags that you need to be looking for, green and red, and how those red flags don't ever get any better, that they only get worse.
Red flags everywhere. Red flags.
Yes, yes. Loving him was red, and we just all didn't realize that it was a red flag.
And what are the green flags?
Exactly. And I think that the fact that we were able to, in retrospect, both of us picked pieces of the date. There was no, well, you're the man, you should make all the
Mhm.
decisions. And I hear so much of this across the board. And I've had friends that have come to me and they're like, why can't I do any of, like, why can't I find these people? Where are all the good guys? They're all gone, or they're all married. And I don't think that that's the case. I think that it's just different now than it was when we were, like I've said it multiple times. Most of us, especially those of us who have been married and divorced, were met our significant other that we were married to in a situation where we met because of proximity. No, I have not met one person yet. And if you are one of these people and you want to comment, let us know what your experience was. I've not met one person who has met not out of proximity and is doing this the second time around. We know that they exist, but for the most part, most of us got married young, meeting somebody at work or at school or in college or on a trip or through a friend group. And that's how we got in the situation that we were in. And so there was some safety there that we kind of took for granted.
Yeah.
That we can't take for granted now.
Well, and let me just throw in there that as a man, divorced and back out on the market, I don't want to play games.
Mm-hmm.
I never want to play. I'm allergic to games, right? Been there, done that, got the t-shirt. So what I was looking for when I got back out was somebody that I really enjoyed, right? I told you from the very beginning, we could be friends or we could be more, we could be whatever, right? Just wanted people that I enjoyed. If think of dating in that way, are these people that I want to learn more about, that I want to be friends with, that I want to, uh, you know, what is the thing that we say all the time, Kabrina? Why do we work so well? Because we're best friends that are super attracted to each other and love each other, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
but you are above all my best friend. There's nobody I want to tell things to more than you.
Mm-hmm.
And we were able to forge that by talking, by being open and honest with each other, not by starting out our relationship at bars, drinking too much
Mm-hmm.
and diving in. So, take things slowly, no games, take a deep breath. Go find somebody that makes your heart happy when they talk, that has that is interested in what you're interested in, that I am interested in what they're interested in.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way to start this, I think. I think the big over the top dates are feeling like they're sort of a guarantee of failure to me.
Well, and also on that of not just things that you are interested in, but also what are the goals that you have for your life? Because I think that especially when you've been in a relationship for a long time and you get divorced or you go through like a big medical thing, you have that, oh my God, this is a second chance. What am I going to do with it moment?
Yeah.
And you already kind of have an idea of the direction you want to go. Like, I want to make more money. I want to own a house. I want to do this with my career. Is that person that you're having that conversation with, are they going to be somebody who can come alongside you in that? And having these real life conversations and thinking about it, taking a step back instead of like, oh my God, I need somebody to like me, taking a step back and going, is this person going to like me, love me, be there when I need them, but also push me towards the things that I want to go towards? And we can talk about that in another episode. But I think closing this out is talking about our second date when we had gone on our first date on December 1st
Magical.
and we had talked almost every single day after that. And then you picked me up from the airport coming home from an event on December 8th. And you were driving me from the airport to
Not home.
a restaurant. Yeah, we'll get there in a second. We drive from the airport to the restaurant. We had dinner together and we had like appetizers and sherry things. And that's just kind of how we like to eat. And then we had this beautiful moment where we could have absolutely made love in the back of your car
Absolutely.
and would have been completely content with that.
So happy about that.
But we chose to wait a little longer. One, because we weren't actually dating, we had just gone on 2 dates. And we chose that at that point because we had talked so much. We had, gone on our 2 dates and things like that. And this is not the same for everybody. We chose to actually say, hey, yes, we want to make this a relationship. Will you be my girlfriend?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of moment. And chose to push back the sleeping together until after that, which I was very grateful for because as much as I was willing and ready to be there, it was nice to feel like there was mutual respect for each other. And also, wasn't ready for you to come home with me yet.
Right. And there's no way that the back of a car is
The best first place.
even remotely in the realm of acceptable for you and for me.
Hmm.
We needed to do things the right way.
Hmm.
And that's the other thing, is that I think through every step of our relationship, whether we were moving fast or we were slowing down, um, there's never been, we've never pushed each other. We've
Hmm.
always been very respectful of each other's boundaries and spaces and preferences. It just so happens that we both really like each other, really love each other, and
Hmm.
became serious very quickly and decided we wanted to date monogamously right away.
Yeah, well, and even in that situation where we went to dinner for the first time and had that longer, drawn out dinner, you still drove me to my friend's house and dropped me off at his house, and then he drove me home
Hmm.
because I still wanted to keep that protection there just in case. Because even though you had just asked me to be your girlfriend, we still went on several more dates
Absolutely.
before I feel like we both were like, yeah, this was the right decision. Because, I was excited to be in a relationship with you,
So,
and I knew that I liked you more than I had liked anybody else. But I also, being the second time around, was cautious of it.
of course. And I had to respect that
Hmm.
always. But I do want to throw one great tip here, is that the restaurant we went to is a little Italian place. The flight came in late, and we got a big appetizer board of pickies and munchies, and we sat next to each other on the
Hmm.
bench so we could do the appetizer board. And got every step of our relationship has been about sharing food together, and I love that.
Hmm.
But what a cool second date to be smushed up next to each other on a bench seat, sharing appetizers, talking.
Hmm.
And then, do you remember what happened when we left?
It was raining,
Pouring,
and we ended up making out in the rain.
dancing in the parking lot,
Hmm.
kissing. It was beautiful.
And we were so happy, and it was such a sweet moment of, this is what I want the rest of my life to feel like.
Yeah,
And I think that was what cinched it for me, because going back to that, are they going to push you towards what you want in your life? I had realized when I got divorced that I had pushed myself into a beige box, and my clothes were beige, black or white. Nothing was colorful. You can look at, I'll probably at some point post some pictures of us on the Instagram of what we looked like pre divorce versus post divorce. There definitely is a glow up that happened. And I'm not where I want to be yet, but I can definitely see how much happier I became when I didn't have the weight of somebody who was pulling me back be there, and the difference that it made even being single, to having somebody who pushes me towards the things that I want and encourages me, and is that person who's like, I know today doesn't feel like a good day, or I know that that contract didn't come through, or I know that that thing didn't go like you had planned at work or with the kids or in life, and still be the person who's like, you've got this, I know, I believe in you more than you believe in you, and those kinds of things are what push you towards the next level. And so many people that I talk to, friends and clients that I work with, this partner that you pick is so vital for your long term success. And I have had many conversations where people feel like the one thing holding them back is their partner. And it's heartbreaking, because a lot of times there's a lot of love there for the person. But if they're, the person that's discouraging you the whole entire time of the thing you're trying to get towards, it's hard to rectify that.
sure. Yeah, you got to love your other as much as you love yourself. You got to push your partner forward.
Hmm.
You always have to be their best advocate.
Yeah.
You're so pretty.
Thank you. Is there any final things that you feel like people should know about this first date. I think we both agree that doing something that's simple like a coffee date is the best thing. Making sure that your safety is in place, and whether male or female, putting that there and making it to where there's no doubt that you're doing the right thing, that you're in the best position, that you're in public. Is there anything else that you
Yeah,
would add?
let a friend know where you're going. And I say that even from the male perspective because there's catfishing and all sorts of weird stuff out there. And
Yeah.
you and I had spoken long enough. I was very sure I was meeting you. But let somebody know where you're going. And then the most important thing is focus on the person. Kabrina and I are pretty traditional in this sense. We both very much wanted to meet somebody that we could have a conversation with and talk to and understand and be friends above all. So tell us if we're off base. Tell us what your expectations are, what your experiences are. What are some other dates? What are some other hacks? What are some other ways to have a first date that maybe we didn't, find in our relationship? We both went on tons of dates prior. We can talk about all sorts of things from speed dating to bowling to, whatever. Um, but when it came time that it was really important, the most important part of that day was that we had the space to be ourselves and to talk and to be safe.
Well, and I've been in situations where I've gone on the date with the person who they insist on going to dinner. And by the end of it, you're like, oh my God, I just wasted 2 hours of my life. And you're like, do I want to do that? I wish we would have gone to coffee first, because that was what made me decide to just always do that.
Yeah.
Is because I had one bad experience and I was like, it's just better because if I like you, we can always go to dinner the next night, or we can always go to dinner next week. Like,
Time is money, people. Come on.
yeah, and there's no reason to put yourself into a situation that you don't want to be in.
I love it. Great advice.
Okay,
We'll
awesome.
keep digging down this. Send us notes. Tell us what you think. Tell us if we're wrong or right, and we're okay to be wrong.
Well, and let us know some of the things that you've done on dates too, because is there something that you have done that you found super successful, or when you met your person, or as you're meeting people, that would be great for us to talk about too? Because we can talk through what are some of those other things and give other people ideas on what to do on those dates.
Perfect.
Okay, well,
Thanks, Kabrina.
yeah, thank you. Thanks for all your good advice. And we will see you next time on Brave Enough for Love.
Bye, guys.
That's a wrap on this episode of Brave Enough for Love. Follow the show wherever you listen so you don't miss what's coming next. If this episode made you laugh, think, or text your best friend immediately, go ahead and share it. Send it to someone who needs it. Drop your questions in the Spotify Q&A or find us on TikTok and Instagram. We're there and we're talking back. We'll be back soon with more love, more laughs, and probably more tea. Stay brave.